Welcome back to the show, everyone. Um, should we give a warning for this episode, Dana?
We're going to give a warning about trigger things. Trigger warning for, we were going to talk about triggers.
Warning for trigger warnings?
Warning for trigger warnings. Yeah.
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 You know, the trigger warnings weren't a thing
Mm-mm.
how many years ago? I mean, it's been 10, 15 years, I think. And then it's gotten more, well, okay. So people have gotten better about it, putting warnings and things like that. And then people that get triggered and there isn't a trigger warning tend to get kind of annoyed, right? But
Yeah.
where does the responsibility for that really lie if it's some sort of trigger that you couldn't foresee, right?
Yes.
But we started to talk about this, talking about your daughter doing having to dissect in a class, right? And I had to do that in my tech program. It was gross. I won't go into details because I don't want to trigger people too much. And I don't know. Then we were sort of laughing at that. It's going to sound terrible. The commercials for like ASPCA, you can tell right away when the music starts. You're like, oh crap.
Oh,
So
God.
I'll. But if it's like the, I don't like watching those. But when it's like the little kids that have cancer, I'm like, oh, it's okay.
Dana and I were talking like this weird thing in movies too. It's like, oh, that really sucks that happened to people, you know, like
Yeah, but
that.
when it's an
But oh
animal,
my
yeah,
God, an animal or a creature, I'm a
yeah,
mess. Like I'm such a mess, which is
yeah.
why
So if you
Dana
don't,
then said yes.
if you don't know this already, I'm trying to find my camera. This the little one in the middle with the little dog face. It says does it's DDD. So it used to be called does the dog die.com, but now it's in its own app. I think you might have to pay for the download, but it's not a lot. And you can put in it got started with the John Wick movies because people,
Oh
I've talked
God,
to my students about like when we had to read
messed me up.
Old Yeller in high school,
Ah,
that needed a
Lassie.
bloody trigger warning. It made me so mad. But then you can go on that, like if you're watching a TV show or a movie, and I'll pause it, and you can put the name of it in, and it'll not only tell you like does the dog die or does the dog get hurt. It's evolved now, and it's tons of trigger warnings, and people that download it and then become part of the community, you can help put input. So if there's like DV or a sexual assault or some of these other things that are horrible, and then stuff like you might not think about, like someone picks a chicken up by their feet and it doesn't look comfortable, it'll have all kinds of
Oh,
warnings in there so that you can, for me, I get anxious if I don't know something's going to happen. So if I know something happens to the animal, I can either decide to look away or I could be like, oh, I'm out. I'm not watching this at all. Right. But it'll have, child abuse. And just because I don't tend to get triggered by human stuff, but I do by animal stuff, you might yourself get triggered by human stuff. And then you can look that up. Right.
yeah.
What I like on there, will have on there, if it's going to give you more information, if it's going to be a spoiler, it'll tell you if you click on this, it's a spoiler. And in my experience, my own experience and other neurodivergences, we don't care if there's a spoiler. We just want to know if watching this is going to be safe. Like if I know the dog gets even or whatever, something along those lines, and I'm like, I can tolerate it more, right?
Yeah.
But that idea of trigger warnings, or if you get triggered by something and you don't see it coming, I mean, that's the whole thing, right? You get triggered by something, those can be things that a lot of people get triggered by. I mean, I'm thinking of like, we live in a world that's kind of messed up right now. In California, there was another shooting yesterday, right?
Yeah.
And when things happen in real time, people will post things to online, and it takes the various sites a little bit of time to take those down again. And so you'll always see like the little squealy thing on something. Like when Charlie Kirk was murdered, it was graphic right away when it first happened. There were videos all over online. Now you can't find them because they know for most humans that's going to be pretty horrible and upsetting, right? to actually see something like that happen. War footage, that kind of things, they just don't
Yeah.
tend to show that because they know it's too upsetting. So those are obvious trigger warnings. We're sort of talking more along the lines of if you have like what we'd say like idiopathic, your trigger for something, maybe something happened to you, or this just tends to be a trigger for you and you know about it. So how can you uh, protect yourself, or in the worst case scenario, if you get exposed to something, how do you deal with it once you've been triggered, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it's something like that isn't happening to you, watch something in a movie. For me too, one of them is seeing a roadkill is just awful, and so
I
I'll
know.
I'll be
Yeah.
like, I'll try not to look, or if I do see it, I'll do like this little prayer, earth prayer for it, and send it somewhere good. But and that's been sort of for me out of the fact that I know it's unavoidable. You're gonna see that sometimes, and then how do you cope with once you get triggered, right? Let alone when you have someone who's talking about something and I think we have a trigger warning on one of our videos recently.
Yeah, the one right before this
Oh,
one.
so, yeah, we were
Yeah.
talking about assault and things like that.
Yeah.
So if you have trauma in your history and you get triggered by something and you haven't been in therapy, you can go into that dissociative state pretty quickly. If you are in therapy or if you need to go to therapy, your therapist can help you unpack those things, journaling, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's hard to avoid. And then there's this culture now where if someone gets triggered and they're not warned, the responsibility of it somehow gets put on the person who did the triggering, which how are they going to know what can trigger you, right? So there's been a lot of people that have kind of criticized that, saying there should just be trigger warnings on everything. It's like at some point you have to deal with real life and there's crap that happens and so on. So it's not that we're trying to free you from any trauma, it's getting the skills and the wherewithal to move through it and deal with it, right?
Dana, would you say like something that I've discovered in the work that I do is that my clients' nervous systems tend to be
Mm.
easily triggered. They're just it like their stress response is
Yeah,
just
yeah,
hair, like it's a hair, right? Like it's like
yeah.
it can get triggered so
You're
quickly.
already, your bucket's already so full. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
They're already it's a very heightened state already.
Right, right.
It's already
Hmm.
hard to settle and calm, especially if they're being placed under demands.
Yeah.
It could even just be being in the community, social things. Like, there's lots of things. And so I always feel like there's a higher vulnerability to
Hmm.
triggers. And I think there's a few clients that I support, and the smallest, like what could seem so benign
Hmm. Hmm.
and so small can be a trigger from something,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
um and so I think this empowering people with skills to
Hmm.
meet life, and I know, again, like, unfortunately the responsibility of managing oneself falls on the self.
Right.
It's just exhausting because we've talked about
Yeah, yeah,
advocacy
yeah,
burden a lot
yeah,
here on the show, but it's what you can control. It's where your efficacy and
yeah,
your
yeah,
locus of control kind of fall.
yeah. I know I'm thinking about things like we've talked about in here, rejection sensitivity. Like it can be
Yeah.
something someone just says and the tone hits you a certain way, and it might not even be that they're meaning that, but you take it
Yeah.
that way. And then you, like you said, your sensory load is so full where you just can kind of go down the bad rabbit hole immediately, and it's really kind of hard to pull up. For me, it's a lot of years in therapy learning how to deal with that, right? How to recognize it and try to do something, process it. But there's always going to be time where you're going to get triggered and something's going to be not fun and awful.
Yeah.
If you expect to go through life never being triggered, that's not realistic. So you can't avoid certain things. In my life, I was a vet tech for a long time. I have rescued a handful of baby birds, but every time I don't like birds. I think I've mentioned that, and they freak me out. Um, and so I have this big palm tree outside my window, and my wife noticed the other day that there's a nest in it. And I come up here, second floor, and I can see right into where Mama is. Is she there right now? She's there right now, sitting on something. And my first response was, oh crap. It was to be stressed about it because what if what if we're here? The crows have already been trying to get in there. And then there's like our basement, your basements have those escape things, those little, what they call like the wells at ground level. One of the birds I rescued, we didn't realize it till almost the whole day that one had fallen through the little grates, and what do they call them? They call them the few days when they're first learning fledgling in there.
Mm,
And I got it out and put it under our bushes and stuff, and the parents were still around, but I felt horrible. I mean, that's still, I had to talk about that one a lot. So for me, when I'm like, oh God, there's a nest, all I thought about was being triggered. I'm like, something bad, something bad's going to happen. And I
yeah.
feel myself having so much anxiety. And I'm like, okay, nature does its thing. Yes, nature's cruel. It'll probably be okay. I am going to, when I know the babies have been born, I'm going to cover that great thing with some plastic so they can't fall through. But those
Yeah.
are those sorts of things. It might not even be trigger yet, but you are like, oh crap, here it comes. It could come. So it's an interesting knife edge to walk, because you're not going to be able to avoid all triggers in life. And if you know one might be there, you kind of want to get ready, but you can't avoid them completely. So really, it's resilience. It's learning how to deal with yourself if you get triggered. And that might be, I'm thinking of a documentary one of my undergrad teachers put on for us during a women's study class. And it was really interesting. It was talking about advertising and how objectified women are in advertising and shit. And that was like, oh, this is really interesting. And then they started getting into talking to offenders and what they'd done, and sexual assault and things like that. And I was in the depths of my therapy then, and I was like, what's happening? So I was all I could do to just, I'm like, should I just move? Should I just leave the room? Am I
Mm,
going to get in trouble for doing that? Is the teacher going to say, why did you leave? If I missed part of the movie, is it going to be on the
mm,
test? Like, all this
yeah.
stuff was racing through my head. And then I did get up at some point, muster up the strength to get up and just stand right outside the door. And it was over not that long after that. And I hemmed and hawed about whether to say something to the teacher. It turns out she noticed me leaving, and then when class was over, she came right up to me and I said, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize it was going to be that activating for folks. Were you triggered? And I was like, well, it was upsetting. I don't know if I knew the word then. Um, so there's always going to be some times where people don't do that, or if they even give you a trigger warning and you think you'll be
Yeah.
okay and you won't, because sometimes it can be a weirdly surprising thing, like you said, that you're not expecting it, right?
I, I I do feel like so many of my clients, things will come out of the blue. And
Mm-hmm.
we've talked in the show, we're not necessarily fans of all the labels, rejection
Yeah.
sensitivity dysphoria, like all the, these things. I would say
Mm-hmm.
though that like I'm just in my mind, there is someone that is like, it's the smallest thing, and
Mm-hmm.
he
Yeah.
experiences quite
Yeah.
significant rejection.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just feel like it's because the fight flight, that stress response gets
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
activated, and there's just kind of, it's so overwhelming,
Yeah.
and
Our brain's
doing,
processing differently. There's been some research into that. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so, the piece there has not only been working with cognitive kinds of strategies, because you need to
Mm-hmm.
work those, but also just, you know neurological types of strategies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Medic I
Yeah.
think, Dana did text this to me the other day because I'm struggling with headaches, and we can't
Mm-hmm.
figure out what is going on. And Dana's like, "What did you say? Chemistry for the win? Chemistry
Oh,
makes the
better
what?
living through chemistry.
Better living through
That used to
chemistry."
be
Dana says,
Dow Chemicals in the 70s had
"Oh
a
my
commercial that was
god,
better living through
it's
chemistry.
hilarious." But sometimes it's like just dampening that nervous system
Yeah.
response that is just so reflexive.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not, it's hard to control. I think the other challenge that I experience too with this one is that so many of my clients can put themselves into a complete dysregulated state by just
Hmm.
thinking about what
Yeah.
might
Good
happen.
point.
You kind of alluded to this with the birds,
Yeah.
right? But it's like, well,
Yeah.
based on this, if this happens, but this would, and it's like they've
Hmm.
basically just worked themselves into a
Yeah.
problem.
Into
Like,
that
and nothing's
state, and then
happened.
not, yeah, yeah, but neurologically, the brain doesn't know the difference.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes. And so, all these, I think what we're doing is expanding the idea of what triggers dysregulation, right? So,
yeah, yeah,
on one side, sure, we've got trigger warnings for some of the obvious things that we
yeah,
just
good
know that
point.
most people are going to be uncomfortable by hearing
Right.
or seeing. Um, the other, though, is that I think there are so many more things that trigger the nervous system
Mhm.
to be in that activated state
Yeah,
with our
yeah,
neurodivergent folks. Like,
yes.
um,
I think
you
that's why a lot
know,
of folks can't drive because it just feels like
yeah,
a assault to the senses, things like
yeah,
that. That
yeah,
it's not that you aren't trying hard enough or you haven't practiced long enough or whatever it is. It's going into that milieu is just completely
yeah,
overstimulating. Yeah,
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 yeah, completely overstimulating. So,
yeah.
you know, um, back to like, how do you feel better? How do you take
Mm-hmm.
care of yourself in that situation?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, how do we empower you to build those skills to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
ultimately it really does come back to you.
Yeah, but so for example,
Sorry.
I teach, and about halfway through the quarter, we get mid quarter evals from our students, and we like, is there something we
Mhm.
could be doing differently? What are you enjoying? What are you not? And this time, I got it was two people who said the same thing, that there were some folks in the back row who tend to be chatty, and it's distracting, like during lecture.
Oh.
And so this week I was trying to pay extra special attention to it, and they weren't. But so you could make one argument saying, if that's distracting to that person, they should do something to be not distracted. I mean, that would be like the hardcore. It's not, take responsibility, which is sort of silly. For me, though, in that sort of setting, I'm happy to take responsibility for that and try to dampen that down because it's a learning environment, right? I'm thinking of when we go to the Mariner games for baseball, they have a couple warnings at the beginning. One is a seizure warning because they'll say sometimes strobe kind of lights
Mhm.
will come on the scoreboard and that kind of stuff. Um, and when it shifted from that, there's another warning. I can't remember what it is. Oh, my wife found when she goes to buy tickets online, they now have it'll tell you which seats tend to be less noisy. So like if you sit under
Oh.
if you're on the ground floor underneath the overhang part, that's where all of those speakers are, and it tends to be the most overstimulated place to be. And then it'll show you like the outfield and some other places are tend to be the most quiet. They'll also have sensory friendly games sometimes where people can come and they do less of that. And then there's that ableism piece. She went once with my sister and they were showing those warnings, and my sister's like, "Oh, it's too bad they have to do that." It's like, good thing I wasn't there because I would have gone off on her. Those sorts of things are good. Those sorts of things, as our culture has evolved to meet the needs of folks that's a disability. If you can't predict it and something like that is going to absolutely put you in a place that's not good, that's an environment that isn't suited for your issue, right?
Yeah.
Just the same as you'd have elevators and not just stairs for people that are wheelchair users. It's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So those will always be good things out there that are sort of structures or communities or environments are learning that are helpful for that. The ones that aren't, like me seeing that movie in my undergrad class, now I know if it's something like that, I'm like, oh, I'm not exposing myself to this. I would have been up and out immediately, right? But you learn those things. And I also know that if the longer I sit there, the more I'm like, is it okay to leave? The more I'm going to have like that fawning response. I'm going to be stuck and not move. But that took a lot of insight and therapy to get to the place where I was empowered enough to say, oh, I'm just going to get out and leave, right?
Yeah.
If you go so far that you're saying, "Oh, this is terrible. The environment's hurting me. Every way I turn, I'm being triggered." You're actually disempowering yourself. You're giving away your efficacy in that scenario. So
Yeah.
those are folks that are saying, "I'm triggered by this," and they're not doing anything for themselves to figure out how to deal with it.
Yeah.
So any trigger out there, that who wants to leave the house when that's the case? So learning
Yeah.
strategies of how to remove yourself or how to deal with something that is really upsetting, those are good things to learn. good things. And we're not saying just be stoic. We're saying that's a good way to bring your overall arousal down, and so you don't get overwhelmed, right?
Yeah, it's putting the responsibility of management back into your hands,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Um, and I love that distinction, Dana, because that idea of why does this always happen to me? No one
Hmm.
cares. Why
Yeah,
does everyone always do this, right? It's an
yeah,
extremely disempowering place to be
yeah.
versus, wow, I really need to shore up what I know about myself and how I can take care of
Right.
myself. And again,
Yeah.
it's not stoicism and it's not
Right.
isolating yourself and being mad at the world, you know? It's
Hmm.
like this happens. What do I
Yeah.
do when I feel this way so that I can take care of myself in this
Yeah.
moment?
Exactly. Exactly.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
again, more work. Sorry. I mean,
Sorry.
it's
But
not,
it's good work. I mean, even if you're not in
yeah.
therapy, if you can write about something, so it's not just like mulling around in your own head,
Yeah.
artwork, talk about it with
Oh
somebody
my God. We talked
that's
about
upsetting,
journaling.
right? Yeah. Yeah.
Right? We've done a whole episode on journaling, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the kind of creative ways to process information, but
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
journaling is so great. It's so
Hmm.
regulating for many. I'm not saying for everybody, but
Yeah.
to get the
Yeah.
mind and the body in tune with, you
To
know,
process it so it
processing
isn't just
something.
spinning in your head. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
get it out. Give it a
Hmm.
frame, give it a context.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or at least, expunge it, expel
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
exercise it.
Just like when I do that, sending the animal to wherever a better
Yeah,
place. Yeah.
right.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, everyone, be good to you and be good to others, and we will catch you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.